shining like the sun. Finger snapping, toe tapping, hip bobbing, the sure enough show stopping hip groove. Music from his He's Made Away CD, the great voice of Arthur Allen. And these are the days of Elijah and Diamond. I feel like I could do a little jig to this one here now. I tell you, man.
You're happy. You're happy and waiting for his return.
I'm telling you, man, this is good stuff. I'm telling you, I could do some jig to this one here. This is true. While I wait,
Pastor Wiz is having the time of his life.
Do some toe tapping right here.
Yeah. Okay. Taken from the CD entitled He's Made a Way, Days of Elijah, the regularized version.
This one goes out to Sister Jennifer and all the folks out there in Belgrade. You know, every time you put the record on, folks from Belgrade call up, they say, put that record back on. Hey, Sister Jennifer, top of the afternoon here.
That one also went up to our daughter up there in Georgia.
I'm waving to her on webcam
Takawa,
right now.
Georgia.
Hi, Vanessa. Try to stay warm.
That's right. It's not that cold. What are you talking about?
Well, just stay warm.
She's having a blessed day, just taking us in, and she's watching us on the internet.
Good.
So all the folks in Georgia and Venice and JJ's looking too.
Well, how about Simone?
Yeah, she's at school.
Okay.
Taking us up to our love segment this afternoon. Pastor Wiz says, love is not bitter. And you know, Colossians 3:19 tells us, husband, love your wives and don't become bitter against them. So you can look at it. Colossians 3:19, Pastor Wiz will tell us that love is not bitter. This one taking us into that little piece there, and then we come right back.
Cause all I need I found in you, baby. Bitterness leads to constant anger. The poison of bitterness can arise from any set of circumstances. It can be ingrained in a person at an early age, or it can grow like a weed over time after a particular loss or event. But bitterness will invariably color much more than the one or two disappointments that caused it to spike. When unresolved anger begins to fester in a person's heart, the result is a consistent pattern of hardness and unforgiveness. Ephesians 4:31 groups bitterness along with anger and wrath, insult and slander, showing it to be one flavor in a very sour mixture of unpleasant, easily triggered emotions. But love, by refusing to let bitterness take root, is successful at keeping all the others away as well. Give your spouse permission to point out the first hint of harshness or ill will in your behavior and attitudes. It will keep anger. There's so much joy in everything we do. Don't need no one else. I'll tell you one thing, Pastor. When you're bitter with your mate, it doesn't feel good spending time. It doesn't feel good hanging around there. When you feel it bitter, it's not a good thing, you know. When unresolved anger begins to fester in a person's heart, the result is a consistent pattern of hardness and unforgiveness. And it is helpful. It is better when you try to get rid of that anger. You know, when you try to get it out. You know, talk about it, get it out of your system, and express yourself, and see if you can find some resolution, and then you can move on from there. But sometimes, you know, when the poison of bitterness can arise from any set of circumstances, and it can be ingrained from an early age. Sometimes folks walk around with this bitterness even from a child, you know, and it's a situation that was never solved, and so it was never resolved, and because of this, then the child has an anger, you know, that is really ingrained and embedded. And it can lead to terrible things.
Right. But what I'm hearing you say is that forgiveness is uttermost important. That you really should forgive, because if you don't forgive, then you develop anger inside. And you know, we were all born in sin and shaped in iniquity, and we're not good people. We're bad people. And God forgave us of all our sins. And if you ask Him for forgiveness, He forgives you of your sin. So why can't we forgive each other?
Well, one side of the coin is forgiveness, but the other side of the coin is for the person who did you that harm to know what he did to you and how much you did not like that.
Right.
And for that person also to say, I'm sorry.
Right, right. So,
you know, you can,
putting it into perspective of husbands and wives, because, you know, you live in the same house, you're sharing space, and to walk around being bitter is a bad thing.
well, that's why you have to give your spouse permission to point out the first hint of harshness or into, you know, ill will in your behavior or attitude. You know, there are some of us when, you know, your spouse might have an attitude or a bad way of behaving badly, and you point it out to them, then they push back.
But I think, too, maybe it's the way the person pointed out to them. If they point it out in a nice way, in a loving way, then I don't
buy that. I don't buy that.
Why don't you?
No, because, I mean, if you do something...
Let me look at Mike B's face over here. See?
I don't buy it. That's like a cop out. That's like a cop out.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody does something to you and it really hurts you, you know, and you can say to the person, you know, honey, it's not you that, you know, what you're doing is hurting me.
Well, that's a good way of putting it. You say, honey, what you did to me is not nice.
Yeah, but for some people, no matter how pretty you put it, you know, they won't be acceptable. I mean, they're going to be pushed back.
Shaking his head
they're
over
going to be pushing back at you, you know.
Yeah.
But you have to give that permission to your spouse to say, well, look, you know, what you did, you know, it's not a good thing.
Well, Mike B, do you agree with what Pastor Will just said?
Well, honestly, yes, I agree with him. Sometimes you have to, just tell it like it is. You know, sometimes.
But I say tell it in a nice way. Don't be too angry, because then the other person develop, you know, and then it's two angry people, and then nothing gets solved.
Exactly.
You know?
You're right. But yeah, we can put it in a nice way, because sometimes, you know, like the Bible says, soft hands turn away wrath.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I mean, I would agree with you on that.
All right.
See, Mikey be smart. You're not taking no sides. No, you agree with her. You agree with everybody.
Well, it's not even about size.
Right.
I mean, I find it worked for me. I mean, it worked for me. I mean, I've been married twice, and you know, my first marriage lasted for a long time, and we had our ups and downs, of course. You know, because before I got married, actually.
I'm
went
gonna
to
get
the pastor, and the pastor our first argument yet. I said no. He said, well, you're not ready to marry yet. So there it is. You know.
Anyway, you're live on webcam, I should say. So
I think we strayed a little bit from the point, though, which is that, you know, you ought to give your spouse the go ahead to point out to you whenever you're doing something that is hurting your spouse without becoming, you know, defensive.
Right.
That is the point.
I agree.
Because, you know, I mean, if both of you are there, and sometimes you can do something to your spouse that'll hurt your spouse without you even knowing that you're hurting your spouse.
True, very true.
Yeah.
And if that person is not satisfied in knowing that, well, then you know that what you did hurt them. That can be ingrained in their spirit for a long time. It'll stay there and fester until one day everything just blows up. So this is what I think the moral of the whole thing.
Right. I agree with you, 100%.
Okay, well, Pastor Wiz, thank you so much for your input.
You're welcome.
That's what's Mike B of WAVS Radio, of course.
In the love section.
Of course, you can catch him coming up from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. right here on WAVS Radio.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Pastor Wiz, wrap it up.
Yeah, like we were saying, married people, spouse and wives and husbands, you want to give your spouse the right, to point out the first hint of harshness or ill will in your behavior or your attitude.